Through learning and developing my knowledge on personal finance, I've been able to understand and spot the key signs that contribute towards financial success. In this video, I wanted to share with you the three main topics to understand if you're doing well financially. Topic number one, determine what game you're playing. There are two main games to play when it comes to your personal finances. The first is the status game, and then the second is the wealth game. In Will Storr's book, The Status Game, he talks about how there's a human craving for status, and a lot of the time we can find ourselves going status mad. We have a desire to fit into social groups, and once we're in these social groups, we then have a further desire to stand out. He mentions how this relates back to our hunter-gatherers days, as those that had the status of being the best hunter, those that had the status of being the best gatherer, were the ones that really stood out, had the best resources, and had the best chances at reproducing. In his book, Will was studying in a group who, in order to gain status within their society, had to grow the largest yam, a yam basically being a sweet potato. He talks about in the group, these men and women were growing the largest yams, and whoever grew the largest yam had the most status, and they were going hand over fist to try and grow the largest, whether it's constantly putting fertilizer on their yam, building the best environments for growth, and that was really all they were focused on within this society. In our modern day life, growing a yam or the largest yam seems pretty pointless. We can see how this is reciprocated with who's got the biggest house, who's got the biggest car, who's got the fanciest watch. And to that tribe, a £100,000 Patek Philippe watch is pretty much pointless. All they're going to be focused on right now is growing the largest yam. And if you walked in there with a £100,000 watch, they're probably not even going to be remotely bothered. The same way as if one of those tribal members came to you with a ginormous yam that they've grown, you're not going to go around flaunting it all over social media, are you? So really it all depends on your environment and what society deems as being status. Nabil Ravikant explains that within the status game, the only way you can win is by putting somebody else down. If I went and bought a £10,000 Rolex right now, I'd feel pretty great. And to those people around me that didn't have one, I would be seen as somebody of high status, somebody of high net worth, somebody that's doing pretty well for themselves. But I'm putting those people down to make myself feel better. On the flip side, if I had a £10,000 Rolex and walked into the centre of London and there was somebody around there with a Patek Philippe on that was £100,000, they'd probably look at me as if I was just an everyday run-of-the-mill kind of person and that they would be higher up than I am. And fundamentally, that's kind of how the status game works. And I would then probably feel a little bit disheartened because I'm not at that level yet. So you can only really win the status game by putting somebody else down. And with the status game, you can never really win. Someone's always going to have a nicer house, someone's always going to have a nicer car, a nicer watch, go on a better holiday than you. Someone's always going to have something that you essentially will not be able to have or not yet been able to tick off your bucket list or been able to do because you just don't have the finances to support it. So within that status game, there never really is a winner. However, what we should be focusing on is the wealth game. We should be focusing on using that money and instead of buying a Rolex, instead of buying a car that's far out of our budget and financing all these crazy things, what we should be doing is using that money, building businesses, buying assets, using it for personal development, growing your skills, and fundamentally growing the amount of income that you've got coming in. Instead of buying things that are going to depreciate, we should be focusing on things that are going to have a positive ROI, whether that is investing or whether that's purely just around building your knowledge. So as long as you're working towards building wealth and not focusing on the status game, you're actually doing a lot better than most financially. So this leads me on to topic number 2 of how much should you actually be earning? So the ONS mentions that the average UK salary right now is around £34,900 and the average US nationwide salary is around $59,400 per year. However, with these numbers, like most of the time with salaries, it doesn't actually matter. For a lot of people out there, we only really reference our salaries compared to our peers and those that we potentially work with within the workplace. Most people I know and a lot of people around London will actually be earning a lot more than those average numbers will make out. However, with these people, they probably still feel like they're not doing as well. I remember watching a podcast of somebody who was earning £60,000 a year and said, how on earth will anybody be able to live on that? Whereas I say the average UK salary right now is around £40,000 or just under. So when we compare ourselves to our peers, our work colleagues, and we don't feel like we're earning as much, we're going to be a little bit disheartened on that figure. A study shows that the most prominent contributor to salary dissatisfaction is that we compare our salary to those of our peers and that we're always in fear that we're going to be out-earned by our co-workers. An example of this is Humphrey Yang had a meal with a multi-millionaire, somebody that had a 9-figure net worth. And his main takeaway from that meal, one of the main takeaways, is that this multi-millionaire said that he was one of the poorest of his friendship group. So this really shows that we could be earning 99% more than anybody else in the UK or the US, but if our friends are that 1% more that earn more than us, we're always going to feel like we're not doing as well as we probably could be. And that's going to be the same for if you earn the average salary or if you're a multi-millionaire. The main things are have perspective against the averages. If you're doing on par with the average or better than the average, that's always a positive thing. Try not to compare yourself to others that may be earning a little bit more than you. You don't know what's going on in the background. Somebody could be earning £10,000 a year more than you, but deep down their financial literacy might be terrible. They might be playing the status game, buying all these things that they don't want or don't necessarily need in their life, where you, on the other hand, might be building towards the wealth game and in the next 10 years or so, majorly surpass them in life. And once again, when it does come to your earnings, don't let your lifestyle overtake your earnings. You've got to really be focused on not spending more than you actually earn, which then leads me on to topic number 3. So topic number 3 is getting your fundamentals right. So we really need to be aware of how much money we're actually spending per month. Create a solid budget. So if you know you're earning £3,000 per month after tax, making sure that you're not going out and spending £3,500 every single month, whether that covers your mortgage, covers your car, covers everything else you've got in your life. You need to be making sure that you're living well below your means. Once you are living below your means, you can then use that excess or surplus money to start going towards investing and actually playing for the wealth game. A lot of financial experts mention that we need to have a clear goal when it comes to money, not just, I want to earn loads of money, I want to have loads of money. We need to have a specific and clear goal, whether that's going to be, I'm going to invest £500 per month every single month, and that is set in stone. Whether that's going to be by the end of this year, I need to have £100,000 in my investment pot. Whatever it is, we need to start to working towards some specific goals and not say, I'm going to put some money away every single month. Be clear and simple with your instructions for your money. Again, with the fundamentals, we need to be having an emergency fund or a rainy day fund. For a lot of people, they would recommend having 3 months of your annual expenses. A recent report from the US actually shows that 57% of US citizens could not even afford a $1,000 unexpected bill. $1,000. So as long as you're doing better than that and you could afford a $1,000 unexpected bill, you're probably doing okay compared to a lot of people out there. The next step in getting your fundamentals right is reducing the amount of debt you've got, whether that is having a crazy car and selling that car and buying something a little bit more sensible and realistic. If you've ever come across Dave Ramsey, you'll know that he absolutely hates debt, and that's probably something I will agree with him on. In some sentences, leverage, I'll appreciate is probably something that he's not happy with, but overall debt is something you want to be reducing as much as possible. And this is for the things of bad debt, credit card debt, car payments, paying for things monthly, paying for holidays monthly. Whatever it is, start reducing your debt and start paying towards that and clearing it as quickly as possible. And another part of getting your fundamentals right is making sure that you're not having to rely on debt to kind of meet your living expenses. You don't want to be borrowing money just to make ends meet, whether that's massively reducing the payments you've got, massively cutting down your expenses, trying to earn as much money as you possibly can. You've got to take control a little bit. So remember, in this, society will probably applaud you for buying a big house, buying a nice watch, buying a great car. However, probably not so much when you start investing or putting some money towards development or actually starting to save a big pot of money. So it's not necessarily about what you do that people can see, but it's about what you do that you know you're doing yourself and starting to kind of put those steps in place. For me, you're doing well financially if you're having consistent growth over time. Your finances are going to have ups and downs, more common than not if you're actually investing your money as well. But as long as you zoom out and you're having a positive trajectory in the way that your money is growing, and as long as it's positively going up every single month, every single year, every single decade, you're doing well with your money and you shouldn't be really focusing on what others are doing around you. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video and stay tuned for the next one.